Hey guys, Chad here with Apex Reviews. Today I'm excited to bring you a 2018 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon. Now, as a previous JK owner, I was pretty excited to get behind the wheel of this new JL generation. For those of you uncertain, 2018 Ford will have the tagline JL. From 2008 to 18, because they're making both the same time, was a JK. And that goes back to the TJ, CJ, YJ generation. So it's just something all manufacturers really do, and this is now called the JL. So throughout the video, you may hear me call it that. It's just to save you a little bit of time. So, like I said, I was a previous JK owner. I really liked that Wrangler. It was a great vehicle. I ended up doing a little bit, so much to it that it was more of a toy than a daily driver. So I ended up selling it, and I now have the 4Runner. So I really like the 4Runner, but I've always had a good respect for these Wranglers. Obviously, I've owned one, and I just do like the open-top freedom that comes along with them, and really the year-round fun. So stay tuned. Let's see what's changed with this new JL generation, and really aid in making that decision for your next purchase. And before I get started, I'd like to thank Feeney Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram here in Midland, Michigan for providing this Wrangler for me to review. I've purchased quite a few cars from them, and they've always been really great to me. Low pressure sales, great pricing. I work with Mike Finelli personally on my vehicles, but there are great consultants there. And if you're in the Midland area or even in the Michigan area, I'd really recommend reaching out to them if you're looking for a new vehicle. I think they'll really help you out. Just let them know I sent you their way. Now, looking at the lines of the Rubicon here, you can definitely, it's unmistakably still a Wrangler. I think people had some concerns with how FCA was going to treat this Wrangler, replacing the old JL generation, just because Americans are a little sensitive about their Wranglers. They really like them to remain true to their roots. You know, obviously the 7 slots weren't going to go away. For those of you who don't know, that's technically for the 7 continents that the Jeep has been around, basically. So anyhow, those 7 slots, obviously those weren't going to change, but they were concerned about the lines. Was that roof line here going to be tilted back too far for aerodynamics? Was it going to lose some of the ability to remove the top and be an open air vehicle? You know, was the Rubicon going to be tamed down? And what you see right now is exactly the way that this came right from the dealer. So these are really nice tires, in my opinion. This is a 285/70R17, which I believe is a 33-inch tire direct from the factory. And yes, they did leave the white letters out. I think that's awesome, kind of a throwback. So the lines are unmistakably still a Wrangler. It's just been tweaked. It's a little bit more modernized. Obviously, they've gone 10 years ahead from the previous generation. So a lot of changes, a lot of technology you're going to find in this Rubicon that you didn't see before. Now, looking at the door here, you can see they have the Jeep right on the side. And my grandfather had a 92 Wrangler that had that same exact location on his Jeep. It was actually embossed in the metal work instead of a badge, but it's exact same positioning. So I do like that history there. And then it does just signify Wrangler Unlimited. I question if that's needed. I think people obviously know this is a Wrangler, and they'll figure out if it's an Unlimited if they don't know that. But something is to be said when you look at the front and there's no badge for the Jeep brand. They're so confident in that people recognize that new front end, or that front end, there is no need for it going down the road. So that's a lot of confidence in the brand, and I think that's just kind of going back to how they understand their market, they understand people, and how people understand the Jeep Wrangler. So now, looking at this back 3/4 view, I really like this one. The Rubicon does have higher fenders in comparison to the Sport and the Sahara, just to accommodate a little bit more articulation when you're going off-road, and then also so you can fit a 35-inch tire in there without a lift. Now, looking at the taillights here, this particular Wrangler does have the LED lighting package. So you're going to see a lot of really interesting lights. You saw them in the front. You get those halos around the headlights. They're not too bright to be kind of ricer-ish or kind of that terrible aftermarket that you see on some vehicles. And you do have the DRLs in the front fenders, but you also get LED taillights. So I'm going to kick on the hazards here so you can just see how they look, and then also the brake lights. I'll turn on the headlights and the hazards basically so you can see exactly how these taillights look. Now, this is just with the headlights on, so you can see you get a nice outer ring there, LED glow. And let's take a look at the headlights. All right, so you can see these are a full LED headlamp as well as fog lamp. And again, I said this in the 2019 Ram video that I did. And these LED lights are actually quite hard, and you can see it says Jeep right there, to perfect in the automotive industry. They had a hard time really getting these to project properly down the road, and they've always had hard cutoff lines. There's no bleeding of the light into, the woods. So it is something you'll still see with these, but they've really gotten a lot better, and they're a really reliable headlight as well. Unlike the HIDs, these won't require replacement, a few years down the road as the gases wear down. And now just looking at your hazards, or essentially what will be your turn signals here. And then you can see the bottom of the fender mounted DRLs is your turn signal. So pretty easy, but really gives it a nice lighting for this new generation. And now continuing on the exterior, one of the things the old JK never had was actually a backup camera, and this one does. So you may be asking, you know, it was obviously hard for Jeep to really get a backup camera that worked well with this spare tire back here, but they have this new one just mounted right here in the spare, and you just use a Torx and you twist that to unlock. This cover comes off, the shroud, and then if you need the spare tire, it just comes right over the camera. So a very interesting system. Obviously this is to prevent some type of theft, I'm assuming, but obviously works well. The other thing that you may have noticed is on the license plate location. The JK had actually stuck out about, you know, 2-3 inches outside of the outer edge there of that body line, and this time around they put it right down in that bumper. So interesting design thought. I don't think it looks bad from the rear. It's just a different location. Obviously they got to change things up. And then your blind spot monitors, they had to do that because essentially these taillights had to be outside of the center of the belt line in the vehicle here. Not the belt line, but whatever this edge is called. Apparently it's not coming to mind, but they had to have it out here because when equipped with the blind spot monitors, they couldn't do it without this being on the outside of the vehicle. So they absolutely had to have it over here. So it's kind of a reason as to why you're seeing these on the far outer edge, but there is a reason for it. They just weren't losing their minds or anything. They do have exposed hinges in the rear. Last ones had plastic covers on them, so just another subtle change there. You do have LED reflectors, the tow package, and that's about it. The gate still does swing open to the right, obviously, and then the back flap glass just opens up. You will see on the side, this fuel door does say fuel, and it is a metal door, and it says Jeep right there on the inside. You won't forget you're in a Jeep. There's a lot of Jeeping going on, I guess. There's just labels upon labels of Jeep, so it's just, they understand that you're pretty excited to own this thing. On the side here, to remove the doors, it does tell you the Torx size here. It says T50, so you know when you get your accessory bag in the back that comes with every Jeep, you know which one to use. You do have rock rails right here on the Rubicon. These are steel. Same applies to the front doors. You have your trail rated badging, and then these are actually functional vents here on the side. They do open right up into the engine bay to allow better cooling. And looking at the hood here on the Rubicon, you can see it's got a nice look to it, great definition. It really reminds me of the Rubicon X, the Rubicon 10th anniversary that I owned, and the Rubicon Recon. All those kind of upper level Rubicons had these nice hoods here, and I will let you know if these are functional or not. I'm not sure. I do see some plastic under there. And then you do have hood rest here. This front window, actually, this whole piece folds down now to allow you that open air experience, and it folds right onto these pads here. So a lot easier to, you know, really take off your hardtop on this. The hardtop is 20% lighter than the previous generation. It's easier to put that front window down, easier to take the doors off. There's actually grips in the handles for you. So just all around, they've really refreshed this Rubicon to make it a better experience for you. All right, guys, let's take a look at the engine bay real quick. Obviously, I don't have to open any latches in the back or in the inside of the car, since this just uses these hood latches here. Okay, now, like I said earlier, this is powered by Jeep's 3.6 liter Pentastar V6, and I will put the horsepower figures below just so you can take a look at those. This has been around the JK generation since 2012. And going forward, you do have an optional 2-liter four-cylinder as well, which is turbocharged, that puts out just a bit more torque, I believe, at a different RPM. But it's up to you to make that decision on which one you want. Stay tuned and we'll do a drive along here just to see how this 3.6 acts in just general driving. And I will have a comparison to the 2-liter listed below as well. All right, folks. Now looking at the inside of the Rubicon here, you can see we've got a lot of red accents, which is exclusive to the Rubicon. But this is kind of dependent on the exterior colors. So if you've got a blue car, obviously they're not going to do a red interior because they have a little bit more taste than that. So this will be essentially a silver band going across. And I'm not entirely sure if this red will stay on the steering wheel and the seats, but I'd presume that those would go away as well. But overall, with quite a few exteriors, you're going to get this red interior accent, which is a matte finish. So it's not too overbearing. See if I can get the camera to focus for you. There you go. So again, just a matte finish. It actually has a subtle satin finish to it, a little bit darker than what the camera's picking up here. But overall, it's a nice appearance. Now looking at the doors, obviously these have to be pretty simple since they only have really one connection here. There's just not a lot that they can really do with these doors. So it looks very similar to the JK in my opinion. You have a different door handle. I did notice, and as you'll see when we get in there, this is a really ergonomic switch for your mirrors as well as for the power locks. And actually underneath here, there is now a spot for you to grab when you're actually taking the doors off. So when you reach through the window, you can easily grab this, and before you didn't have that with the JK, so it's very awkward to take those off. Now looking at the driver's seat here, this is the standard cloth interior. You can get the Jeep equipped with a leather interior as well. And I actually found it quite interesting as to how the seat is reclined and also brought forward, and then how the seat height is increased, and this is your lumbar. So lumbar is an easy rubber knob here. It actually is rubber, it's not plastic, so it's got a good feel to it. This is how you adjust the height of your seat. It's almost like a pump. Kind of just a different setup. A lot of manual seats don't have height adjustment, so you might make a joke about it, but it's a great feature since most of the time, wherever this is mounted is what you're getting. And then here is a strap that you pull to adjust your seat. It actually is very intuitive. I used it going down the road and it felt just fine. Now taking a look at the inside of the Wrangler, you can see you've actually got a pretty decent amount of space in here for you and your passenger. If you ever sat in a JK Wrangler, it's going to feel just at home here as well. And I did notice as I drove this around for the past 10 or 15 miles, it's very ergonomic. So the way this power mirror control is very natural. I can easily get to it just by moving my hand, and then, or even obviously moving my hand, but it's just easy to get to. I'm not putting my arm in an awkward spot to do it. I have easy controls to my power door locks. My arm is resting here and I can easily just touch it. Now looking at the center screen here, I'm just going to play some royalty-free music so I don't get flagged through YouTube, just so you can hear how this optional Alpine radio sounds in this Wrangler. My JK I had an Alpine radio as well, but I will say this one definitely is an improvement over the previous one. It's got a more of a solid bass, it's not as boomy, and overall just sounds good. I can tell you I've played some more mainstream songs here rather than Big Sky, but it does sound very good. I just take my word for it. If you're an audiophile, I think you'll be fairly impressed, and I think it's a good value since you're getting all those things in that entertainment package, including the optional Alpine radio. So obviously that goes quite a bit higher, and it was pretty loud in here even where it was at. So pretty much every FCA vehicle goes up to 38. So to give you a guideline of exactly how loud that was beyond the line going across the screen. So radio is pretty much the same as you've seen in pretty much any Uconnect products. You've got 3 USB inputs, aux port and USB. A couple of those media ports are right here. So you have your USB charging, and it does signify this is number 1, which is nice because the rear, as we'll get to see later, does have this same setup for 2 passengers. So you actually have 3 of these pods, essentially, of USB-C and USB throughout the vehicle. You do have aux port here. And so simple controls there. Here's your radio controls. You have AM, FM, XM. I can't play that or I'll get flagged. So it's there. I did listen to it earlier, and actually sounds pretty good for being XM. Obviously, you get a lot of bitrate loss there, but for what it is, it sounds fine. Do you want to extend it over your 1-year trial? That's up to you. It's just something to think of. I think it's a 6-month trial, but regardless, the trial period, it's up to you to decide if you want to extend. Climate controls, I just turned that off, but you do have quick access here to your heated seat, heated wheel. You have backup camera access throughout the entire time you're with the vehicle. So if you're driving down the road and you want to check your trailer, you can easily do so. And I do like that you can actually see the all-terrain text right here on the tire. So if I turn on the climate control, you can see very easy to read layout and simple to control temps here. I do like that it switches from hot to cold in the color. I just found that out, so that's pretty interesting. And again, obviously your controls to your seats is there as well, which is kind of a redundant control, so it's up to you if you want to have both of these, because you can switch them out. If you just grab onto this, off-road pages for example, you can drop it in replacement of that and it'll change. Now this isn't my car, so I don't want to do that, but something just to note. Back to your control screen. This one does have nav. I'm not going to exactly put where I'm at, but you can easily go home, to work. Obviously those are two main things you're going to, and information screen. So it works really well. It's a nice fluid screen, nice graphics. Everything is very quick. That's something you're always going to see with these Uconnect systems. I hate it when new manufacturers are putting out luxury vehicles and they've got really slow screens. It's like, come on guys, we're 2018. Let's go ahead and get a proper navigation unit in our vehicles. So I'm glad that over the past few years, FCA has really done a great job in protecting these. And just to note, you may be wondering, right? This top comes off. We've got a screen here. Is this okay? And yes, it is. This is a waterproof screen, water resistant, waterproof. But they've done their testing. There was a full article I had read about how this navigation system worked, and not even navigation, how this Uconnect system worked and how resilient it was to everything. So just know that don't worry about the screen. They've done their checking. It is fine. Now you do have access to the phone here. I'm not going to share that just because it does have some personal information on there, but I did call somebody on the system today and they said they could hear me just fine. The voice came through great and they heard a little bit of road noise, but just something to know. Now looking at your center stack, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the air so you can hear me a little bit better. Here's your radio controls. It's got a nice rubber knob to it. You have your heated and front and rear windows, heated steering wheel, which heated up very quickly for me. And there's your heated seat, temperature controls. Well, you can figure all this out for yourself. You know what all these mean. And you have your tuning knob. You do have some aluminum here, which feels very nice. I do like the exposed hardware. I think that looks pretty nice in my opinion. You have a quick access to the mute function on the radio. I do like where it's placed, very easily accessible for the user, and auto start stop. So what this does, as you know, I'm sure when you come to a stop sign or anything like that, the car will basically turn off, or if you're at a stoplight, just to take advantage of the fuel savings, and it starts up just as soon as you start to release the brake pedal. So a lot of people don't like it. It's up to you if you want the fuel economy or not. You can easily press this and turn it off. And there's a hack I found in the forums to actually just disable that completely. Here's your stability control, hill descent control, and then an easy function just to turn that screen off. If I press it here, see the screen just turns off. And looking down even further, you can see your power window controls. The two front windows are auto and the rear are not. This is an easy switch just to disable the rear windows and lock them out. You do have your 12-volt outlet, as well as your media, which we had looked at earlier. You do have 4 auxiliary switches that can be used for whatever you may choose. A lot of these Wranglers don't stay stock for long, so it's a very easy pod for you to add those, so you don't have to buy an aftermarket alternative. Easy sway bar disconnect. I do like the coloring here on the front and rear lockers. So you just tip this down and you would do your rear locker, front and rear, and this just puts everything back to normal. So I do like how that looks. It really has a nice appearance to it. And then looking at the center console here, you can see you do have a Willys Jeep right here on the top of the shifter, as well as, nope, it's not on the side, just some exposed hardware. Very quiet shifter, no concerns in that front. And then you do have your 4-wheel drive controls here as well. You do have a spot for your key fob to hold here. And I did just want to note, this is what the new key fob looks like, as opposed to the one that the JK had that was from the Mayflower came over. I mean, it was ancient. Simple lock controls, remote start, nice rugged lock, and it does fit right within that spot. And then you have your normal bottle holders, and that's about it. You have a little spot down here for change, is what I always used it for, and that's about it. So it's got an interesting little design to it. And your standard emergency brake lever. You do have a USB input right in the center console there, as well as a illumination. And you do have a top storage unit as well. Looking at the mirror, you have your assist and SOS buttons. This little flake design that you saw in the center console here is throughout the whole vehicle. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if I'm 100% in love with it, but it's just something you're going to live with, I guess. And then looking over here, you can see it does have a smaller glove box, but it does just fine. There's just a lot of space taken up by that speaker since they can't have them in the doors. And then you have your Wrangler text going across. This is it's not soft touch, but it's not a cheap plastic. You can tell it's got some quality there. My finger is sticking as I press. And the door panels, in terms of quality here, these are hard touch plastics, which really, in my opinion, should be in place here with a Wrangler. Leather wrapped steering wheel. You do have a hard touch dash, some storage up here as well for your phone, keys, whatever you may would like, and that's about it. So the passenger side, not too much going on. It is a standard lever there to control your seat functioning and forward and back, as well as the same strap. Now, sitting in the rear of the Rubicon, you'll see I have adequate legroom. I am about 5'9". The seat is actually a bit further back than typical, but I am doing just fine. The Rubicons do have these kind of nets that you can use, cargo systems and different things that kind of connect right into these nuts. So I'll let you look that up. I don't have any examples to show you, but that's what that netting is about. Standard storage nuts, and then these are actually for grocery bags, so you can sit them right in that when you're going home. Here's your vents for the rear, your power window controls, and then down here are your USB inputs for the rear. You can see this one is number 3. 2 was in the center console, and this one just says USB, so this one must not feed into the radio. You do have a 150 watt power outlet in the rear, and that's about it. So not too much to really denote in the back of this Wrangler. It's a pretty simple system in the rear, so if you've got kids, there's not much they can really break back here. It's a pretty simple rear seat. All right, now coming into the back here, looking at the gate, see this opens up just fine. You do have your Jeep Trail. Essentially, this is what they call the trail rail ready. So there's different accessories that you can put right on this back hatch as well. And I do like this badge. You can see it says the Jeep JL Sport Utility. Signifies all the wheelbase figures and the overall length, your water fording abilities, as well as being made in the United States. So just a nice little plaque there for you. It is metal, so I did like to see that. You can see the Alpine subwoofer there. Your new roll bar, a little bit of a different design in comparison to the old ones. But overall, things are very similar to what you saw before here. And those rear seats, these do fold down pretty easily. You just press this button, headrest drops, and then you push this, and the seat would then come down. And for those of you that have concerns if you're parked on an angle, there is a little notch there within that bar that actually does kind of notch the gate open, so it won't easily fold forward if you're parked on an incline such as that or on some roll. Looking underneath, you do have storage for the windshield bolts as well as the roof and the door hinges and everything else there. The jack is underneath. If you just use that open tab there, this plastic lifts off, and you have additional storage in the back. You could put ice in there, whatever you'd like, because there is a plug to drain whatever's on the inside. Simple D-rings for the rear to tie down anything you have in the back, and that's essentially the rear of this Jeep. Now this did turn off automatically with the automatic start-stop. So when I let off the brake here, it is going to start right back up. Now this is not to the floor, but just a simple acceleration run. So you can see it gets along just fine. You do hear some engine noise, so that's something you're going to have to get used to, but that's to be expected with this particular Wrangler and really just a class of vehicle such as this. And really, I guess I shouldn't say class, because there isn't really a competitor directly to the Wrangler. It's just with this Wrangler, with the way the architecture is, with the doors being removable, the top the way it is, the solid axles, you're going to get more road noise and things like that. If that's something you're not interested in and you really can't deal with, may I direct you towards a crossover, because I don't think this would be the right vehicle for you. This really does have a certain audience. Again, it's going to turn off. See, it says auto start stop in the corner. Now please keep your ears open for the tones and the different acoustics that you get with this 3.6. I'll be doing a follow-up run with a 2-liter turbo here just very soon, and I'll try to put those videos right here within the link below in the description, just so you can see, or I'll put a card up top actually, just so you can see exactly how this sounds in comparison to the 2-liter, and I'll provide a little bit of feedback since I'll be driving both back to back and really how they felt. Overall, ride comfort is good. You have a nice solid ride with the body on frame construction, but it is forgiving. I did go over some speed bumps earlier today, and it felt in control. It didn't feel bouncy or anything along those lines. Just overall, a nice solid built vehicle, and I've yet to hear any squeaks or anything such as that. So a good indication of first model year build quality. Now turning around here, I'm not going to floor it, but I am going to give it a little bit more gas than standard, just so you can see some of the acceleration here. As you can see, it moves along just fine. I'm going to guess a 0 to 60 and somewhere around that 7.5, 8 second range. I could be wrong, and there was more gas pedal there. I didn't want to, get on it too hard, but you can see it does move along just fine, really. So it moves along very similar to the JK generation before. Obviously, it's the same engine with some mild tweaks, but it's got an 8-speed transmission now as opposed to the old 5-speed. So with those extra gears, it's able to keep it within the power band of this engine more so than it used to, obviously, in the past. So I recommend going to your local Jeep dealer, getting behind the wheel of a JL, and just getting a feel for it. How do you like it? How does it ride? Do the brakes perform the way you'd like? And does it fit your family's lifestyle? If you've got a dog, and they might not like the dog going in the back, but try it, see what they think. See if the dog will fit fine back there, and then put your kids in the back seat, see what they think, and just go for a short ride and get a feel for it. I think that's really the best way to get a vibe for it, but obviously we're not all able to do that, so this is where these reviews come into play. But I really urge you to do that. I think you'll really be surprised with what you find, and I think you're going to like this JL. Just keep in mind, it is a certain kind of car for a certain person. Don't buy it for the image, don't be that guy, but if you live the life that the Wrangler is directed towards, I think this will be a great vehicle for you, since it offers that experience and that go-anywhere lifestyle that you may enjoy. Alright guys, stay tuned. As always, I try to get a new vehicle out at least once a week, if not every 2 weeks. Typically they're going to be FCA vehicles, but you never know what's coming through the pipeline. And as always, subscribe, like this video if it was helpful. If you loved it, subscribe to the channel so you can see them in the future. And I'll catch you soon. Take care. Alright guys, let's take a look at the window sticker for this 18 Rubicon. Now starting off, the base price is $41,445, and this one does have the stained gray exterior paint with the black interior and the 3.6 with the automatic. And none of those were options except for the automatic, which rang in at $2,000, as we'll see later on. Now, I personally would have probably held off and just drove the manual, but again, that's just personal preference. All the standard equipment's there on your left, and then the optional equipment's listed below. And there's quite a few options on this, about $9,000 worth to be honest. And the cold weather group came in at $995 with the heated steering wheel and heated front seats, as well as remote start. And the towing package with the electrical group, which offers those auxiliary switches, was $795. And then for the LED lighting, for your headlamps, tail lamps, turn signals, all those fun LED bits, but also really for safety as well, came in at $995. Now the infotainment group, which gives you the navigation and that 8.5-inch screen, as well as the Alpine audio, which in my opinion was really worth the $1495, as well as 5 years of some Sirius XM services, that HD radio and all those fun entertainment bits came in at that $1495. And the all-weather floor mats were $150, the automatic was the $2,000, and the hardtop 3-piece was $1,095. With destination, the total price came to a staggering $50,465. Now, before you kind of lose your marbles there, just one thing I do want you to keep in mind is the depreciation on these Wranglers is relatively low in comparison to many other vehicles. In fact, this is consistently in the top 5. And that same exact reasons why I went with the 4Runner is because it's within the grouping of 5. I think the Tacoma, the Wrangler, 4Runner, and I think the Tundra, these are all like top 5 vehicles in depreciation. So although the car is $50,000, the actual cost of ownership is less than a typical vehicle that you'll see. So if you spend that same $50,000 on a car, it's going to depreciate typically right around 50 to 60% within those first 3 years. And typically the top 5 cars there that I'm mentioning retain up to about 72, 74% of their value. So the actual cost to you in the end when you go to sell the vehicle is less. So yes, it is expensive, but when you break down the numbers, cost of ownership isn't as bad as you may think. If you just think about it, think about the guy that bought the Cadillac Escalade that spent $90,000 to have his Escalade, but yet in 3 years it's worth $40,000. He's lost more money than you have since the value of that asset has depreciated so far. Now the powertrain warranty is 5 years, 60,000 mile, and that about wraps it up. So if you guys have any questions, just give me a shout. Thanks for watching, and make it a great day.